But we all knew how this was going to turn out. Nobody is shocked. Nobody is appalled. Like, oh my God, I can't believe Clay would do something like that. We fully expected it. I think AD is the only one flabbergasted by anything that happened on tonight's episode. Welcome to La Vida Rosa. I'm your host, Pinky, and today we're going to be talking about Love is Blind Season 6, Episode 12, The Weddings. So if you'd like to see more, then just stay tuned, like, comment, and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into this video. Literally, there were only 2 weddings, and I'm like, did this turn into an elimination show without my knowledge? Like, is this Survivor? Is this the challenge? Is this Big Brother? Like, why are people getting knocked out left and right? How many couples did we start off with and how many couples we got now? We only got 2 weddings. Mind you, the people that dropped out needed to. And shoot, probably one more needed to before they got to the altar. I don't know. It's just a little disappointing when they don't make it to the altar because that's the whole point. At the same time, it's like in real life, I totally get it. I'm just messy and would like to see the fireworks go up in front of a whole crowd of people, okay? So with that being said, let's just go ahead and get into Chelsea and Jimmy. So they're sitting down. I believe this is the day they went to the amusement park. Is this the same day? Anyway, they had a great day of hanging out. He asked her if she was ready to give her answer at the altar. And, you know, he was like, we haven't really talked about it just yet. And I just want to see where your head is at. And, you know, she kind of went back and forth with her decisions. Like, yeah, we had our ups and downs, but we got through it. And I feel more secure and confident in this relationship than I ever have. Her face was completely lit up, just full of life. And he snuffed it out so fast. Like, it was diabolical the way he sets things up. After setting it up like, oh, well, have you come up with your decision? And, you know, smiling at her while she's giving this answer of like, yes, I can't wait to be with you for the rest of my life. He tells her that he wants it to work with her, but he doesn't want to go to the altar with her. I literally got whiplash. It was very reminiscent of what he said the other day when he was like, well, do you want me to stop hanging out with my female friends? And she was like, yeah. He was like, well, I'm not going to. It's the same thing. Don't get me wrong. He's making the right decision. I think we all were screaming at our TVs wanting them to break up. And, you know, we saw how Chelsea was acting these last couple of episodes. So I'm not mad at him for doing it. But it's like, why you got to play mind games to do it? So one of the reasons why he said he didn't want to be with her is because she kept saying that Amy and Johnny was the strongest couple. Was she lying? Like, why are you mad at her for saying that? Y'all get into it every other day. And also on top of that, you've proven time and time again that you're not truly attracted to her. She accused him of never being serious in the first place. And she felt like he wasn't trying. She was like, why did you even propose? She was like, we picked songs out for the wedding and everything. And I kind of agree with her with that. Like, you are going through all the emotions and then you all of a sudden going to drop this bomb right before the wedding. That is kind of mean. Like, would it have been worse if they had got to the altar and he did that? I mean, I guess the sooner the better. But it does feel like he played with her a little bit. Now, this is where I have to get on Chelsea because she was like, you think one argument is enough to end the whole relationship? Chelsea, y'all have been arguing since day 1. Okay? He felt like you lied to him about looking like Megan Fox, and it's been downhill ever since. Let's just be honest. Let's just be honest, okay? And you were manipulating then, and you're low-key gaslighting and manipulating now with the way that you treat him in this relationship. It is not lollipops and gumdrops and rainbows over there with y'all. Stop it. He brought up the fact that he really didn't like that. He exposed the fact that him and his friend had slept together that one time, and she exposed that on camera when he said he told her that in confidence. And he said, it's not even so much that I want to keep up my image, but you exposed her, and that's my friend. And I agree. That was disrespectful of her to do that. I didn't agree with that either. And he was like, well, I just don't feel like I could tell you anything because on Mad Day, you're just going to throw it back in my face and embarrass me with it. Public embarrassment and exposing something that was just supposed to be between us, that's like some deal breakers for me. So I totally agree with him on that. She was halfway taking accountability. So, you know, I apologize for that. But then you throw it in his face. Like, he was like, that's something that broke trust with me. And she was like, what? The fact that you F'd your friend? He was like, yeah, thank you for continuing to show me that I'm making the right decision. Oh, she was so mad about But she did say that she was uncomfortable with him texting her all day, every day. And he was like, you literally FaceTime your ex the day we got back and we got our phones. And I'm just like, Chelsea, you really don't have a leg to stand on, please. So then she brought up the fact that he called her clingy and the fact that he told her that he didn't want to be intimate with her all the time. If that was so bad that you're throwing that in his face right now, you should have left. I mean, I wouldn't want to be with somebody that felt that way about me. It's really sad because a lot of times men know their worth, and when they're not being treated right, they're able to, set a boundary and say, I can't do this anymore. Whereas women will see all the red flags and keep going like it's a green light. You know what I'm saying? We'll see more of that with Clay and AD later. So basically, she's like, it seems like you've already made up your mind. He basically was like, yeah, I already have. It is what it is. And so she storms off sobbing, and he really didn't look the least bit upset. That's the problem I had with Jimmy, because a lot of people feel like Jimmy gets a lot of unfair criticism, and I just think it's because he's being disingenuous. He didn't really want to be with Chelsea, but he told her every 2 seconds that he was attracted to her, that he was in love with her, but it was nothing for him to break it off with her. He looked like he didn't have a care in the world, like he couldn't wait to get away from her, which I don't blame him because of her behavior, but I just don't think he had any sort of feelings for her in the first place. Now let's go ahead and get Amy and Johnny out of the way. At her bachelorette party, she ends up telling AD that they still have not been intimate because of the whole birth control thing. And, AD is very shocked and like, oh, really? In her face. But behind her back, she was like, girl, I don't even believe that. She was like, the way she be all over him, I just don't even believe it. I can believe it. He's dead serious about that. And she's going to have to get on birth control before he's willing to go there with her, even while married. AD was also like, well, how are you going to get married before test driving the car? Honestly, AD's opinion on the situation was a little bit disappointing, and it kind of shows how she ended up in this situation with Clay, to be honest. She also told AD that she's 98% sure that both of them will say yes, but in the off chance that he does say no, she does plan on cutting him all the way off and not continuing in a relationship with him, and I don't blame her. So then we get to their wedding day, and she's talking with her friend about, how her dad had a dream that she would have blonde-haired babies, and her friend said, I had a dream that you were FaceTiming a blonde-haired man, and so all of it's just falling into place. And her dad came in and gave this very heartfelt speech. Y'all, I was crying. I can't even lie. I was crying. The relationship she has with her father just seems so beautiful and genuine. And, clearly she doesn't have as close of a relationship with her mom. That was a little off to me, but he said he had his reservations about the whole thing, but he changed his mind once he saw how happy Johnny made her. And so that made him go ahead and embrace the wedding and embrace their marriage. Another thing that really touched me is the fact that they had pictures of their grandparents sitting out in chairs. They were pulling it out of me, y'all. I don't know if I was just in my feelings or what, but that was just so touching to me. Also, she had his sister as one of her bridesmaids, and she was just around while all the family was interacting, and she just fit right in. It just seems like their families really mesh really well with one another and are very supportive. And she says she doesn't take that for granted because a lot of people would not have family support them in this way. Yeah, her father and brother walked her down the aisle. She said her vows, and she gave this heartwarming speech about falling in love with him or whatever, and she was like, I can't wait to spend the future with you. And all he said was, I can't wait. And I'm like, did they cut his vows? Like, is that all he said? Like, that was a little weird, but both of them did say I do. And I feel like, honestly, just seeing them and how they interact with each other, a part of me feels like they are really going to make it. I feel like they're one of the ones that are like Lauren and Cameron, that it truly was a real connection. And I really hope they do, because it seems like whatever they have together is genuine, and it's a beautiful thing. It really is. And I wish the best for them. I hope they get those blind babies. Okay. Let's move on to AD and Clay. Clay D. Why did I call them Clay D? I'm going to skip the bachelor and bachelorette parties because nothing of note really happened. We get to the day of the wedding and they're playing these flashbacks of Clay and AD. Nothing was romantic about it. It's literally just AD constantly having to prove herself and say how she'll be there regardless of all of his issues, and she'll carry his burdens. And it's like, what about his commitment? What about him taking care of your feelings and being there for you and being a shoulder for you to cry on? Like, you heard none of that. It was all of her doing the heavy lifting, and then him constantly bringing up the fact that his dad was a serial cheater, like it's hereditary. I don't care what his words say, his demeanor always gave apprehensive or shady or disingenuous. It was always something about it, just very uneasy. When he's talking to his friends, he just feels so comfortable saying that he didn't think it was possible to fall in love without seeing someone first. And yet you signed up for this show. Like, isn't that the whole point? It's in the name, Love is Blind. That's the whole point. So that's what's making him sound like even more so of a con artist. He claims because of AD, he transformed all of a sudden, and all of a sudden he's not focused on the physical and superficial. Got it. So then he met up with his father. And it all was starting to make sense. Okay, it was coming together like a puzzle piece. It's crazy to me that it's your son's wedding day, but you feel the need to bring up the fact that you were this all-American track star and you made it all the way to the Olympics and you could have went further if you didn't pull your hamstring. You know, just completely making the moment about himself. And then at some point he said, well, once that didn't work out, I just live vicariously through you. And I'm like, it made me wonder, like, well, I wonder, did Clay run track because he wanted to run track or because he's trying to live out his father's dream? And, you know, I ain't gonna lie, after hearing the way that his dad spoke and seeing their relationship, even for that brief moment, it did make me have the tiniest bit of empathy for Clay. You could tell he didn't get what he needed from his father. His father wasn't adequate at being a good role model from him. Outside of the cheating stuff, he just didn't have it to give. And, you know, his father did say his father wasn't present in his life. And his mother told him that he needed to treat his wife well and be good to his kids. And then he was like, well, my mom didn't have to tell me to be good to my kids. Well, even in hindsight, you didn't see that you should have taken heed to that advice. The dad is speaking in cliches and saying a bunch of nothing really, like something you would hear on a PBS special. It sounded good because he's very charming and suave. Like, I totally get that from him. He's great with his words, but it just had no meaning behind it. And then Clay said, well, this is the most my father ever poured into me, was in that moment. I'm like, the dad didn't even really say nothing. Now that's crazy. The dad didn't even say anything of note. You could just see it so clearly that they just have this very superficial, shallow, surface level relationship. And they haven't had like any of those real conversations that you have with your parents, like life lesson conversations. His father has this like suave mask on, and you could see Clay trying to mirror that same thing back to him to try to impress him and try to emulate him. But it's see-through. You could see that underneath that, he's just this scared little boy. His insecurities are like on full display as far as I can see. That whole dynamic shows why Clay is the way he is. Not excusing any of his behavior, because I'm not. And we're going to get into him. At the end of the day, the dad really couldn't give him much advice about marriage. I mean, how could he tell him how to be a good husband when he took him on infidelity trips where Clay witnessed him cheat on his own mother? We'll get more into that later on when the dad has a conversation with his mom. So then we see AD with her sisters and friends and mother. And, you know, she puts on her wedding dress. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, she did look amazing. She looked beautiful. That dress was hitting in all the right spots. She was really emotional. Her sisters, her mom, like everybody was just in tears, just so happy for her. And I'm not gonna lie, I shed a few tears, even though I didn't agree with the wedding or anything like that. I shed a few tears because it was just a beautiful moment. And even when she was walking down the aisle, she walked herself down the aisle. Her mother just seemed like she was getting really worked up. And then Clay's mom, who she met earlier, and they really hit it off. But Clay's mother ended up comforting her, and it was just a beautiful thing. And if they actually had a healthy relationship, I would have loved for those two families to come together. It seemed like they would have meshed really well. So when she finally walked down the aisle, instead of complimenting her smile, instead of complimenting her face and her look and saying she looks beautiful or she looks gorgeous, he said, "You got that ish on though. You got that ish on, no." I'm sorry, that's not something you say on your wedding day. It just isn't. Like, that's something you say to your homeboy when y'all about to head out. Okay, body. It was downhill from that moment for me. We get to the vows, and he once again brings up that he was very resistant to falling in love with someone sight unseen. He also said that when he saw her, he said, "I could work with that." Not, "I was blown away, it took my breath away, I had nothing to worry about," or a simple, "She was beautiful." No, "I can work with that." I guess that's good enough. In your vows. And AD just cheesing and posing. You know, he really didn't put much into his vows about who AD is as a person, her qualities, her character. You know what I'm saying? The things that he wants to do for her and how he wants to serve her in their marriage. No, just talking about how she had a lot of patience and put up with everything that he put her through. And at least say, "Well, I'm going to return the favor for you whenever you need that from me." But of course, her vows were all about him, and it was so page coded. I feel like they even sound alike. It's weird. The correlation between Paige and Chris and Clay and AD, it really does need to be studied. So the officiant was going on with the service and said superficial things like looks weren't a factor for them. And he had the nerve to say, "I ain't say all that." AD, he gave you so many opportunities up until this point to leave and walk away and just throw your hands up and be like, "I'm done." And you just would not take one. So then they get to the point where they choose to get married or not. And of course, AD goes first. And I'm just like, why did they tell AD to go first? I guess, but y'all knew AD was going to say yes. So then when it gets to Clay, and he asked him what his decision is, and he said he doesn't think it's responsible to say "I do," because he doesn't think he would be adequate as a husband, but I'm still rocking with you. And then he was like, "But I know you still gonna fight for me." AD, why didn't you snatch your hands back? She sat up there and let that man embarrass her, holding both of her hands, smiling and grinning all in her face when she was saying all these sweet things about him and saying yes. And you sat up there and let him help. Girl, it would have took everything in my power not to grab whatever was closest to me and throw it at him, okay? Even though I feel like she had every red flag in the book to run away, I still felt so bad for AD because she genuinely was caught off guard. She genuinely thought this man cared about her. And she was just shedding tears and saying, "Clay, don't do this. Don't do this." I was just like, oh my God, don't beg him. Not after he publicly embarrassed you like that. I just wanted her to walk out. Like, I didn't want her to say anything else to him. And then at some point, he had the nerve again to say, "Why does the timeline matter?" Why does the timeline matter? That is literally the entire premise of the show, is to meet someone that's a stranger, get engaged to them sight unseen, and get married to them a month later. Hello? I thought you binged the show the other day. You know that this timeline matters. And then for you to ask that question in front of all of y'all's friends and family, like y'all really about to sit down and have this conversation in front of everybody. Are you crazy? I don't know how she had the restraint not to slap him. He wouldn't have nothing else to say to me. Like, I would be completely done with him at that point. Thankfully, her mother and her friends and sisters came to her rescue and escorted her out of there. It was one of her friends in that audience, though. If looks could kill, Clay would no longer be with us, okay? Because she was not playing. I love the fact that his mother gave her a hug and, try to console her, because it was so, y'all, it was so sad. She walked out of there and she was sobbing, and, she was just saying how confused she was and how he wasted her time, and she feels like she's never enough. This has happened to her time and time again. Even though I hate how he did it, I hate that it hurt her in this way, but it was 100% the right decision. The audience could see that this was not going to work out, and it's better for y'all to have broken up outside of being married and having kids and all that. I hate you had to get embarrassed like that, but it is for the best in the long run. And his mother even told him, like, if you're not 100%, if you know that you're not ready, then you should not cross that line of marriage. And then at some point, his mother and father went to the side and they had their own conversation. And when I tell you, this was one of the best moments of the season. This was one of the, like, not just the episode, the season, because this scene was so real. And she said, he struggles with marriage because of you, because of the decisions you made in our marriage. He doesn't know if marriage can be real because you didn't treat our marriage as if it was sacred. And you need to explain and apologize, and don't make excuses for what you did, so that he can have closure and he can move on from this. The dad starts breaking down and crying, oh, I didn't have my dad in my life. Okay. You are too old to use that excuse at this point, okay? It's time for you to take accountability and responsibility for what you did. It feels like he's saying, well, my dad wasn't there for me and I was there for Clay, so I'm automatically a good man because of that. And no, that is not what that means, because you traumatized this man for life, taking him on trips to go cheat on his mother, which is just completely sick. And I love how the mother didn't have any sort of sympathy or compassion. She done been there, done that with him, and she's tired of it, okay? She told him exactly what he needed to hear. And she told him, yes, we are divorced. And yes, I forgave you a long time ago, but I didn't know nothing about these infidelity trips. Okay, she didn't say it in those words. She implied it. Okay? But that's what she was saying. She told him he's carrying that and he needs to work that out before he's ready to marry anybody. And he had the nerve to say, well, he needs to marry somebody like his mama, like I did. And she was like, guess what? You met me and you weren't good to me. You didn't do right in our marriage. He wanted to start crying again and getting emotional. And then at that point, she just had to walk away. Like, ain't nothing changed. It's wild. Like, old school men, they feel like women should just put up with whatever they give them and just be okay with that. And I'm so proud of Clay's mom for actually walking away, because he gives very manipulative. We see this confessional of Clay talking about the reasons why he decided not to move forward with the marriage. And, obviously he said he needs to work on himself and all that. But then at one point he brought up finances, and it's like, if you're not comfortable with her finances, did you ever have that conversation with her? Because it feels like you're bringing all of this up as an excuse now, when you could have talked to her about that if that's something that truly did bother you. You know what I'm saying? Because you could have a legit reason for it, but for you to be bringing it up now, it feels like an excuse. She's somewhere crying and just looking completely numb and dejected. He's trying to tell her that it's not him rejecting her, and basically he still wants to try to make it work, almost expecting her to just be over it. Like, stop. And then trying to kiss all on her or whatnot. I would have done a Meredith. I don't know if y'all have ever seen this scene from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, but I would have pulled a Meredith and I would have said, there's not one thing that I would have needed to hear from Clay. Are you crazy? And she's sitting up here letting him play all in her face. Once again, she said she feels used because he got something out of this. He feels like he learned something about himself. And once again, I'm used up. I've given too much and, got nothing in return for it. And she says she's tired of this happening. And AD has to learn that you don't have to overextend yourself for someone that truly loves you. Yes, with relationships, it's give and take. You pick up where they might fall short. But if it's you giving 100% and they're not giving anything, you're giving, they're taking. That's not somebody that is for you. That's not somebody that truly loves you. That's not someone that you should be dedicated to. Because a man that truly loves and cares about you, he's going to put in just as much work as you are. He's going to want to make you happy. He's not just going to tell you what you want to hear. He's going to put action behind it. It feels like AD just doesn't know what true love feels like. And I can completely relate because I didn't truly know what that felt like until my current relationship. And it's like when you're finally loved correctly, you'll look back and you won't believe what you put up with. You'll be like, I can't believe I thought that was love. I can't believe I actually gave that man a chance. You could tell through that man's actions he didn't love me. He didn't care about me at all. But hopefully you can look back at this show and see exactly where you went wrong, right? For you to even give Clay a chance. For you to even give Matt a chance. You know what I'm saying? You fell right back into that same pattern that you said that you always fall into. And you said it stems back from you chasing after love from your father. And you have to really analyze why it is that you do that. Because if not, you're about to fall right back into that same trap. And I also want to say that obviously self-love is the main remedy to all of this. Because if you love yourself, then you won't be willing to deal with someone that doesn't treat you better than you would treat yourself. She claims that she doesn't see herself dating him after this, and I really hope you stick to that. But a part of me feels like you're going to run right back to him. I don't know, y'all. This whole thing gave me a headache. But we all knew how this was going to turn out. Nobody is shocked. Nobody is appalled. Like, oh my God, I can't believe Clay would do something like that. We fully expected it. I think AD is the only one flabbergasted by anything that happened on tonight's episode. But y'all let me know down below what you thought about this review. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? I would love to hear your opinion. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And I'll see you in my next one. Peace.